Hi everyone, in this video I wanted to showcase a short film that I worked on last year. It's an interesting film because it is about 15 minutes of film and there's maybe 30 seconds of dialogue, and the rest of the film is score and sound design. And so I was really excited to take on this challenge. So I got to work early, I read the script, and I wrote a couple sketches. I was kind of thinking more like woodwind, heavy type of things. And when I watched the rough cut, I realized that I was very wrong. And there was the editor edited to what's called just a temp track, so you kind of compiled some different cues together and use those as cut points. And that's not uncommon. Most films have that as a way to develop pacing in the editing process. But there was a lot of orchestral score, which was kind of more where I was leaning, and it felt very heavy-handed. It just didn't feel right. So I reached out to the director and I said, hey, I need about a week or so to kind of process this and think about the direction. So my family and I left to go visit my mom in a small town in Alabama, where I'm from. And my mom lives in the downtown district, and we went to this little general store. And in the corner of the general store, there were these wind chimes. I walked over to them and checked them out, and it was interesting because they were different tonal centers. So it was like one in A, one in E, one in D, one in C, and they were all tuned in pentatonics. And I was taken aback by it. I thought, this is a really cool sound. And then I went back and I watched the film again after I got back, and I realized that there were wind chimes in this film. There were wind chimes in all the major locations, actually, surprisingly. The opening scene, there's a wind chime on the front porch, and there's a wind chime at the cemetery, which is one of the other main components of the film. And so I decided to have the wind chime be the focal point of the score, because using traditional orchestration, while I ended up using it in there, my fear was that it was going to become very melodrama and very heavy-handed emotionally. And so what I did was I went out and I bought like $800 worth of wind chimes off of Amazon, and I just got to work recording. I recorded them, playing them with different mallets, hammers, bows, and then the other component that I used was the synthesizer that I bought at the time by a company called FolkTek, which was a Resonant garden. And it's interesting because it has these microphones inside the synthesizer, and you can record into it and manipulate the sound that way. And I blended that with piano and the bells together to create a more immersive kind of score. And it's something that you don't really hear, but you feel. And we replaced all of the wind chime sounds in the film with the wind chimes that I composed. So all of the key centers it's interesting. I think I recorded one in E and A. I think I bought 3 of them. And so I just recorded all these samples and these sounds, and E and A have a lot of tonal commonalities. So certain notes that worked in the key of A, would work well in the key of E. I was very mathematical in my approach, finding ways to make these chords and these clusters intertwine with other keys. And because of that, I'd do something maybe outside of a traditional key of the key center, and those notes became extensions, a 9 or a sharp 11 or 13, very like beautiful color tones. And that was kind of the bedrock of my score. The main takeaway for this video is understanding tone and understanding the importance of creating a score that supports the film. This music that is kind of all-encompassing, and it doesn't feel out of place, whereas just a traditional orchestration could feel, like I said, heavy-handed. So with that said, we're going to jump into this film now. We're going to watch 3 little opening cues that kind of towards the first act of the film, and we're going to dissect it. I hope you guys enjoy. Let's jump in. So I wanted to show how I compose music for this short film. I wanted to show 3 little scenes at the very beginning of the film. First is a confrontation between this woman and her husband, and then this biking transition scene to the cemetery, and then her laying down in the cemetery. And come to find out, she has been a byproduct of domestic violence, and she lost her baby, and that's why she's going to visit this baby at the cemetery. This first cue is very unsettling. So that's the first cue, and then we cut into this next section. So the interesting thing about this first cue is that I recorded the bells, which you can see right here, and this the first notice that you see them is right here in the frame. You see them right there. The first thing I have is this bell sound right here that's reversed. So I literally just recorded the bell sample, recorded a lot of bells, and then just reversed it. And then did automations and things like that to them. The next other set of bells are these cluster chords as well. So what I did was each bell was tuned, like I mentioned, to its own key center. And this one is an E, so it's an E pentatonic cluster. So E, F sharp, G sharp, B, C sharp. And so they're all kind of playing different little sounds. And we replaced the sounds of the bells in the Foley with these bells. The other main thing that's going on here, I have a bass, a key bass, which is just playing this drone down here. It's an MS-20. And the other insane thing is this instrument that I bought. I no longer own it. It's a cool instrument. It's a Resonant Garden. It's a synthesizer that has microphones in it and all these different little things that you can manipulate. But here's what it sounds like in this context. Yeah, so it's kind of eerie. And that with the bells over top of it, and the key bass. Provide the overall intensity of this opening scene here, this tension. And it builds, I do some automations, things like that to riser, and then we have a hard stop going into the next cue, which is this biking scene. And so this scene is interesting because I have a piano that's introduced, but the piano is mirroring the bell sound. So if we listen to the piano by itself, we pull up the MIDI data here for it. And then here's the sustain pedal that you can see that. So this is one of the main themes. Very simple. In order to make it feel less foreign, because this is like a piano is a very traditional instrument, like I said, I wanted to use those bells as the kind of the glue for this cue. So what I did was I recorded the bell sound and I had it play the melody. So we have a couple little bell things going on here. And I EQ'd all of them and put a reverb through them. With the piano and the bells are just mirroring each other. I recorded so many takes of different ways of playing the bells. I played them with hammers, I played them with mallets, I played them with a bow, I played them so many different ways. And the last was this one. So I would play a chord, like I'd strike all these things, and then I'd let them, after they've struck for a while, the overtones would just play. And so I would just record those overtones. So it just adds a nice little textural sound to the overall cue. And so in context with those, I also have some string parts. I used the Spitfire Tundra. And then here's the MIDI data for that. I bounced it down. So we're not hearing it. We're hearing the bounced version. But it's just kind of providing some harmony to this cue. And if you notice, it doesn't resolve. I like to leave a lot of tension in my music because that's the drama, right? The first thing we have is we have this inversion in the chord, which is the 4 chord with the 5 and the bass. And I'm gonna throw the bass in here as well so we can hear we have the foundation. And if you notice right here, we got on the 5. And we end on this 5 chord with the suspension. We don't go to the 1. Just like I said, just some added drama to the scene. And so altogether, those parts sound like this. See how it doesn't resolve? And we have the bell overtones that kind of have this cluster of A with a B going on. So it's like kind of resolving, but it's got the second over top of it. It's just a nice little feel. And so for the last scene, there's it's the crux of the first act. And we're sitting here with this woman as she's processing this. Similar instrumentation as the previous cue. I have the Resonant Garden playing these kind of textural things going on. And this sound from a lab. And then we have this moment where it kind of breaks free. So we're building to this one point that's right here, which is in the piano. And then we end on a minor tonicism here because we're going back into our home, which is not a safe place for her. Yeah, so let's chat through what's going on here. A lot of different things going on. So we have this opening portion. We have, I'm gonna move the movie over here. We have the Resonant Garden. If you notice here, I have the Resonant Garden going into the bells. The bells going in the Resonant Garden. So what I did was I recorded the bells and I recorded them over the synthesizer because it has microphones in it. And so I was getting these kind of interesting textural sounds that I wouldn't normally get through regular bells. So that's going on. And then I have this kind of, these two other things going on, which the first one is the Labs Siren Loon song, which is this kind of just textural sound. And then I have these orchestral, another Labs plugin. These are all bounced down, so it's just playing the stem. And these are kind of working in unison for this little first cue. The last thing that I have is just a Resonant Garden. Just little sounds that I made with those. You can hear here. Similar kind of tone from the beginning. So yeah, it's just kind of one tonal center. It's an F sharp, so it's just the minor 6 chord. And then the harmony changes. So 3, back to the 6, and then the 5. And then back to the 6. And then we go into this theme, which is a really simple little theme that's played by the piano. And it's this right here. And I'll pull up the MIDI data for it. most important thing is if you don't understand how piano works, it's really important to understand how the damper pedal works to create a very convincing piano. Except if you just have the damper on all the way, it's going to get really muddy. And then we also have this little bass line, and it's just copying the MS-20, which is down here. And the bells. Which are right there. So like I said, every time there are bells in this film, we replace them with my bells, just because I wanted to have music that was all-encompassing and kind of in this own little space that wouldn't pull you away from it. Because I only had bells in 2 tonal centers, I wrote music in those tonal centers. All these cues are really intimate and really small. And the thing that makes them work so well is that they were created with the mindset of this world in this very intimate space, and I wanted to write music that encompassed that space without being too much in the way. So all the instrumentation is really simple. There's a lot going on in the instrumentation, but it's all really simple, and it created this immersive score that you really didn't even hear, but you felt it. And I think that's really important in films like this, because we don't want to oversell. If it's very easy to become a Hallmark movie if you're overscoring and you're creating too much emotion. You know, the job of the actor and the story is to evoke that emotion, and our job as composers is to just kind of help push it a little bit sometimes, and sometimes just to sit back and just let it sit. And in this situation, I really just wanted to have a really intimate moment. We have this last cue here where we're kind of the end of the first act, like I mentioned, where we start off really kind of disjointed and upset, and it breaks away as she kind of comes to. She sits up and she presents this little heart that she welded at the very beginning of the film on this gravestone. And that was where that first cue comes to fruition, and it carries throughout the rest of the film. And by using bells and things of that nature in conjunction with the piano, it made the piano feel not so foreign. It also made the strings not feel so heavy-handed, because there's these bell textures that are playing similar common tones that the strings are playing to make it feel more immersive. So thank you guys so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I mentioned, the main takeaway is understanding the importance of instrumentation orchestration and how that can impact the film that you write music for. It's really important to find unique signature sounds that can accentuate the visuals and the emotions. By me using bells, it helps the audience to become further in depth into this world, into this story, and it made the music feel more emotional and intense, as opposed to making the music feel just kind of thrown in and just there for support. There are other videos that I've done. You can check them out over here. I've done tempo, meter change, scoring from a script, all these types of different things. And I wanted to showcase this film, like I said, because it was a different process, and each film is unique and different. I hope this is informative to you. Until next time, take care.